Hello, my friends, and welcome to the podcast where our goal is to remind you that amidst the chaos and craziness of the world today, there is still plenty of good that is worth shouting about. In each episode, we highlight the stories of another creator of good in the world. Nonprofit, for-profit, it doesn't matter. We know that when you use what you have to add to the world, we can make the world better. This is Creating Good with me, Matt Barnes. Let's create some good. Hello, creators of good. Welcome to your podcast, Creating Good with Matt Barnes. I'm Matt Barnes, and I'm so excited about today's interview because, we live in a world that is advancing rapidly. Things are changing, and new things are popping up all the time, and some of that's exciting, and some of that's scary, and some of it we're not sure if it should be exciting or scary. And today we're covering a topic that I think falls into that category, which is AI. So, but before we get to that, I want you to know that you can follow me online at Matt from Rogue everywhere, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And you can follow Creating Good online at creatinggood.co. That's our website. That's our Instagram handle. That's all the things. So we would love for you to follow us. We'd love to hear stories of how you're creating good. So what we'd love for people to do is to post and tag creatinggood.co on Instagram and share stories of where you're seeing people create good in the world, so we can amplify those stories. That's what we want to do, because it's inspiring and it's exciting, and it helps us realize that all of us have what it takes to create good in the world. If we can just use what we have, if we can come together, especially, there's just amazing ways to do that. Today, my guest is Amy Neumann, and she is an expert in leveraging AI for social good. Now, AI is the thing that people are scared of. I'm sometimes scared of it. Sometimes I'm excited by it. I'm not sure always how to feel about AI and the role it's going to play. We're still very early days with AI. I know sometimes it feels like we've been talking about this for a while, but realistically, it's been about a year and a half, 2 years of really talking about AI and having it sort of impact the day-to-day of our lives. So it's still evolving and growing, but the whole point of creating good is, how do we utilize what we have and the tools that we have to create good in the world? And AI is a new tool. And Amy Neumann, this is what she's doing. She's working with nonprofits and NGOs to harness the power of artificial intelligence so that they can amplify their impact and their efficiency. She's got a book coming out called Empower Your Nonprofit: Simple Ways to Co-Create with AI for Profound Impact. And she's at the forefront of integrating cutting-edge technology into the nonprofit sector. It's really exciting stuff. So I can't wait for you to hear this. It was a really eye-opening, interesting conversation with Amy, and I think you're going to be very, very fascinated by what she has to say. Amy Neumann, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Of course. Now, on our podcast, we have a tradition, an opening segment we do called 3 Random Questions.
All right.
I have a list of many, many random questions, and then we randomly have chosen 3 of them for you. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
All right, let's see.
Do it.
If you could be doing anything else in the world right now, what would you want to be doing?
I'm already doing exactly what I want to be doing, but I would probably do a little bit more art if I had time.
Oh, art. What kind of art do you like to do?
A lot of painting, but I've tried maybe several dozen mediums, and now I'm to the point where I started to sort of combine them in interesting ways. I like to think.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Second question. What is your happy place TV show?
I'm a big HGTV fan, so
All
I
right.
just like to have that on in the background sometimes, and or maybe some of the classics like Seinfeld.
Nice. Excellent. And last, what would your favorite animated movie be?
That's a great question. I haven't seen too many recently, but I loved The Incredibles.
Mm, that is a great one. I love that
Classic.
movie. We showed that to my kids recently for the first time, and they just thought it was the greatest thing ever. So they all got the costumes. It's so great to now, because when I was growing up, a costume meant you know, it was either a really crappy thing you bought or something really crappy that you made. And now for like $20, you can go on Amazon and get a costume that looks like the real thing. It's like not even
Nice.
expensive. So
Yeah, and you get to see The Incredibles like 50 times now in a row, huh?
yes. We see everything 50 times in a row. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Moana. All right, you have successfully passed 3 random questions. So I want to get into you and who you are and what you're doing. So tell us your origin story. Where'd you come from? And what brought you to what you're doing now?
Yeah, great question. I just happened to start with AT&T right out of college when in the mid 90s, and I got involved with working with internet stuff then, and just sort of got obsessed with all the cool things that could happen when you use technology for good. And so that path has just led me in lots of different directions, including recently in the past maybe 6 or 7 years, a lot of blockchain and AI.
Okay.
And yeah, every time something new comes out, I like to try to crack the code on how to use it for good. So that's kind of what I always focus on, and never a dull moment in the tech space for sure.
Awesome. Well, yeah, and I'm looking over your resume earlier today and noticing, much like mine, you have a lot of things listed that all say from some date to present. You're still you're still doing a lot of the things
Right.
listed. So you are probably, I'm guessing, a little ADD like I am. Um, but you've got your hands in a lot of things. What is it that's taking most of your attention and your time, or what is there a commonality between those different things you're doing?
I've always loved writing, and right now I have a book coming out in November, and I think that doing research and writing about things as they come out and letting people know about them, I really love to do that because I think anyone who's in the nonprofit sector is already trying to accomplish a lot of impressive stuff. And if there's a way to make it easier, faster, stronger, I heard someone call it bionic the other day, then I want to be able to share that, because my nonprofit mission is to leverage technology to free up time for the things only humans can do.
Yeah.
And I think if I can help, free up 5% of a nonprofit staff time, and they can repurpose that towards more mission work and helping people in the way that only humans can, that's a good feeling. So I focus a lot about research and writing on tech topics is sort of my passion. I just finished a master's degree last year, kind of on the same topic. So I
Nice.
guess I'm in that zone right now.
Nice. Well, congrats on that. It's interesting. I like the way you said that, of freeing people up to do what only humans could do. I think that's such an interesting and sort of opposite maybe look at AI and technology than most people are having right now, which is kind of freaking out of what is AI, or going to take from us, and which is obviously a valid conversation and worry in some cases. But I love the viewpoint of, okay, what can this free us up to do that only we as people can do? And
Right.
there's a lot of things, and so that's really interesting. I
Absolutely.
want to hear more about that. Like, so is this a topic of your book?
Yeah, it's called Empower Your Nonprofit: Simple Ways to Co-create with AI for Profound Impact.
Oh, I love
And
that.
so thank you. But the goal really is to, there's a couple of schools of thought. If you have seen a lot of science fiction or read a lot of books about AI or interviewed a lot of people for podcasts, for example, you'll hear some different themes come out, and some are a little bit more positive than others.
Yeah.
I'm on the optimistic side where I think that all of this can enable, for example, if you can get some staff time freed up at a nonprofit, people are very creative and have a lot of good ideas, but they don't always have time to share them because there's a lot going on. So I'm hoping that we repurpose any saved time into more creativity and innovation time,
Yeah.
as opposed to maybe you just cutting costs or cutting staff or anything like that. I think that's the worst possible use of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of on the side where I'm very optimistic. I think maybe like Kai Fu Lee, who says that maybe we can get people to get paid and focused on some things that they haven't been paid for, like elder care,
Mm.
child care, and some other things like that. So just shifting things around more
Yeah.
is how I look at it, not really taking anything away.
Yeah, that's yeah. Like I said, that's such a great perspective, and I think helping people to see the opportunities there, even even not in the nonprofit spaces, even as I'm thinking for my for profits and my teams, helping them to see, like, this frees up, because nonprofits in particular are out there trying to solve the problems of the world, right? And so many of
Right.
them get caught up in doing the same thing every year, year after year, doing the same thing because there's just so much to do. But really, to solve the world's problems, we need innovation, we need creativity, we need that freedom to try new things. And there are
Right.
other problems in the nonprofit sector holding people back sometimes from doing that, but that time is certainly one of them. And this
Mhm.
could be a way to free people up. How have you have you seen, like, what are some practical examples that you've seen of people doing this?
So I think that generative AI is really good for brainstorming. And
Hmm.
so I think that that used to be a task that required another person a lot of times, and it still does. But I think with ChatGPT, for example, you can have it role play something so that you can sort of walk through what different scenarios would be. I use it a lot for first drafts of things to
Mm.
help me uh, think through what I'm trying to accomplish. I mean, I use it a lot for a lot of things,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the brainstorming is fun because I think what it does, I heard someone say that I quoted in my book, it's almost like you have a lot of interesting things in your brain, but you forgot about them. They're out on the periphery,
Oh yeah,
just circling around there, and you get in there and maybe you ask for what are the top 10 ways to do this or try this or resources, and then you're like, oh, I forgot all about that, and it's
yeah.
just a really good to sort of reactivate maybe some knowledge that you have or add in one little ingredient that was missing to the recipe, and now it's like a complete recipe. So,
Yeah. About a year and a half ago, when ChatGPT first kind of came onto the scene, and everybody's talking about it for the first, at least in my experience, this is the first I was hearing about it, and everybody's talking about it, and I don't know anything about this stuff. So, um, I we were scheduled to do a team meeting to brainstorm ways to promote a certain project that we were doing, and the night before, I just thought I'm going to give this thing a try, and I put in sort of the prompt of what we were doing and what are some creative ways to promote this, and it kind of gave me this list. So I
right.
come in the next morning, and we have the meeting, and we spend 45, 50 minutes doing what we would normally do as a group. And at the end of it, I looked and I pulled out this list and I said, "Hey, last night I put this in here," and we held it, and it was almost the same exact things.
Nailed it.
So, and the great part for that, for me, in my mind, was they were all the beginnings. They were the general sort of ideas. We still need to be able to
Mhm.
flesh those out and get creative with them and all of that. But that could have saved us
Right.
an hour, and we could have gotten straight to the, like, fleshing it out and brainstorming and choosing which ones we want to follow, and so yeah, I totally get what you're saying about, yes, saving time. What are some of the other areas with nonprofits that this can be applied?
A lot of them have to do with, content creation.
Hmm.
So, there's a lot of different tools out there, and I almost am a little wary to quote particular tools
Yeah, yeah.
at any given time.
Because by
However,
the time this comes
I
out, they may not be relevant anymore.
right, that was a challenge with my book because I was like, "How do I keep this as evergreen as possible?" I ended up interviewing a lot of, leaders in the nonprofit tech space just to get what was in their heads and, so it's as
Yeah.
fresh as possible. But I think it's a lot of content creation. There's a lot of repurposing content now, so you can take maybe a long form video and slice and dice it into shorter videos,
Yeah.
or you can do you can put in an outline of what you're trying to do and even make an avatar of yourself talking. You can translate things into multiple languages very convincingly with videos. I think from that standpoint, I have mixed feelings as a writer, uh,
Right.
and it's good for some things, it's not great for everything, but if you're a small nonprofit like my nonprofit and you're trying to have as much impact as possible with the limited time that you have, it can be very powerful because now instead of having to do everything from scratch, you can sort of have a plan and a system to get the information out there and maybe some pointers where you can even write you drafts of things. So
Mm.
anything in the content area, I think is pretty strong. And then also data analysis, so you can learn about your donors and patterns, and AI is really good at finding patterns that humans don't necessarily see. The good news is a lot of this is already baked into tools that nonprofits are using or
Mm.
will be shortly.
Yeah.
So it may not be the case that you have to go out there and say, it's probably never the case where you have to say, I need to use AI for this, but you
Right.
need to find a tool that accomplishes your goals, and probably it's going to have AI in it in a couple of places that will stand out and give it some extra power.
Well, and it seems like that's the nice thing about what we've quickly hit upon in culture and in this kind of AI space is that it's starting to become more integrated into the things that we're already using instead of where do I,
Right.
because I think the question last year was a lot of where do I even begin with this? I've,
Hmm.
I'm so used to the tools I'm using, I forget to even go check AI and then for this thing you gotta go there or there, you gotta go chat GPT or whatever, and not knowing which ones are the best and all that. Now it seems like I mean, Apple announced recently they're integrating all the AI Apple Intelligence stuff with chat GPT into their into all the apps. I mean, it's just going and Adobe's doing that with their creative suite, and so it's kind of it's making it more accessible for people to figure out where do I even go to do this, and that's nice.
Well, one of my former board members, Cal Aldi-Babe, who just exited his company and sold it to an organization in Atlanta, has been in the AI space a long time, and he says that tech really gets good when it gets boring.
Yeah.
So as soon as people stop talking about AI
Yeah.
separately, then you know it's all baked in and ready, for whatever possible solution that you need. So I think that's probably pretty true. If you think back to the internet, at first people were talking about HTML and
Yeah.
all these things that made, different things work. And now it's just an assumed, of course,
Yeah.
no one talks about that. No one talks about that piece of it. You're just used to all the things that it allows to happen,
Yeah.
and I think AI is gonna be a lot like that, and you can already see that, there's different tools, but it's getting so embedded, like, if you are a Microsoft user and you just activate Copilot, now all of a sudden, everything you're doing has AI elements that make it easier and faster and better, so,
Right.
um, yeah, it's just gonna blend in behind the scenes like all good technology does over time.
Yeah, 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 definitely. In fact, yesterday we were sitting in a meeting with a potential client, and one of my team members was there, and we're talking, and she was taking notes, but she was also had Chat GPT open, and so as the person was talking, she's putting prompts in, and immediately able to go, have you thought about doing this, and providing suggestions and solutions, and doing that kind of on the spot research, and it just changed the way we kind of do those meetings in some ways, because all of a sudden we can, it's not okay, let me hear everything from you, and then we're going to go away, and then we'll come back a couple weeks and tell you
Mhm.
what we came up with. We can start generating ideas on the spot, not fully fleshed out, obviously, but at least like showing it. What it did was, I was noticing, was immediately providing sort of hope of like, oh, there are solutions for our problems, and these may
Right.
not be the exact ones, but it gave us that ability to say, hey, we're here, we've got the ability to kind of find solutions for you.
It's kinda mind-boggling, actually. I guess at this point, after 30 years, I shouldn't be as impressed with technology as I constantly am. I'm like a little kid, I guess, easily entertained. But I think it's just fascinating to see. I have a lot of people ask me, "Well, what should I or shouldn't I do with AI?" I'm just like, "Just ask it whatever," because literally I did a training for someone and I said, "And just by the way, it could change tomorrow," and like that night, ChatGPT rolled out image generation. So
Right.
it literally was tomorrow it was different. So just ask whatever questions you have and explore. Always keep in mind that it may not be 100% accurate. It does hallucinate, is the nice term they said for making stuff up, right?
Yeah.
And then check the links, although, that's gotten much better. A year ago, it was you couldn't really get, actual proper links that would go where they're supposed to go, but
Sure.
that's what I'm saying every day. It's faster and better, and it's just I can't believe sometimes I'll say, "Oh, I'm gonna try this because, a couple weeks ago I couldn't do it," and all of a sudden it's like magic. It
Yeah.
really is like magic.
Yeah.
Mind blown.
What do you say? I'm sure you have this conversation. What do you say to people who are scared of this? Like, I don't mean to belittle that, because that there's I think a real fear there of losing jobs, or is this going in a way where we're going to end up in a Terminator future, and the machines come after us? Uh, like, but I mean, the people are a little bit hesitant about this AI thing, and nonprofit space tends to not be the most innovative, and needs to be. So, how do you talk to people about that and bringing them along in it?
It's a very valid and very common way to view it, right?
Yeah,
People are nervous. Anything that isn't well understood causes a little anxiety. But I just think that, ignoring something doesn't make it go away. Like if
right.
you walk into a crowded room where everybody's talking and you cover up your ears,
They're
now
still
you can't
talking.
hear. They're still talking, right?
Yeah.
So it's exactly like that. Just because you aren't a fan of it. It's so funny because over the years people have said, "Why do you even like AI?" And I said, "I didn't invent it. I'm just trying to find out the good ways to use it," right? So, but I mean, it's like it's here to stay. It is it is exponentially having an impact day over day. The longer you wait, the harder it may be to catch up,
Mm,
and the sooner you start, the more you can take advantage of all the kind of awesome stuff that it does. So, there's no downside to learning it. There are a lot of downsides to not learning it and
yeah,
ignoring it, in my opinion. So,
sure.
it's one of those things that I've had this conversation so many times, like,
Yeah.
I lost track because it's every time anything comes out, social media, mobile devices, you name it, people have the same reservation, the internet,
Yeah.
calculator.
Well, I mean, us doing
You've
this
heard all this, right?
doing this over
Yeah,
Zoom, like,
yeah,
the first time I did a Zoom was the first week of the pandemic, and everybody's going, "Oh, is this gonna work? Can we even run it, do this?" And now I have clients I've never met in person, that
yeah,
we've only met over Zoom, and we've done great work for them, and it's just changed the way that we can. I mean, it's opened the boundaries up of what we can do, and but there was definitely like, can can we do this? Is this gonna work? Like, this is awkward. It's funny, like, we had FaceTime on our phones and things for many years before that, but I barely ever used it, and now I FaceTime all the time. Now
mhm,
it sort of normalized everything very quickly. It did the same thing for something that was already almost dying, which was QR codes, which are now everywhere again because it
right,
it was the first time that we were actually forced to use them, and then people got used to using them, and now it's just a way
there
of
you go.
life. Um,
Yep,
one thing I'm curious about. I've had some conversations in the nonprofit space, AI related, specifically about the potential of using AI for grant writing and things like that that would really be not just time savers but money savers. Do you
mhm.
have you had any experience with that? Have you looked into that at all?
A lot of tools are incorporating AI that are focused on grant writing, and absolutely, I would use it for that. I would do sort of a hybrid of having it help and then having someone add their final human touches and review it. I would never just take something fresh
Right.
out of AI and just use it as is.
Yeah.
However, I think that that is a really good idea because there are a lot of differences in there's some differences in what grant information is requested and how it's requested. However, one of the good things about AI is you can take bits and pieces and keep repurposing them and reusing them. You
Mhm.
can ask it to, for example, let's say that you're working with a large foundation. You could ask ChatGPT to look at their site and look at their annual report and tell you who they've granted money to, how much,
Mm.
what are the chances that it matches up with your organization. You could do some research ahead of time to know whether it's even likely probability that you'll be able to get the kind of grant you're looking for. It could give you tips about how to fill out the grant application. It could write a lot of the grant application for you, which means you might remember to add some things that you wouldn't have thought of necessarily if you're trying to do it on the fly. And so I think, again, I'm going to be hard pressed to answer any question that I don't think it's good to use AI in some
Yeah.
capacity for it. But that's true though.
Yeah.
I think that's why I love technology. It's because of those reasons. It really does add value, add time back into your day, add efficiency and effectiveness. There's just there's a lot of things humans are good at. There's a lot of things computers are good at. So just divide and conquer and,
Yeah.
kind of put it together in the middle and take a look at it. But why, somebody can't do math in their head to the degree that a computer is, and why would you even want to? I'm
Right.
just
Right.
so certain tasks that just lend themselves really well, like digesting a lot of information.
Yeah.
For example, that going back to see who got what types of grants, that's a pattern that it would be hard for a human to see, but it would be easy for AI to see. So you can just
Yeah.
ask it, hey, based on all this information, how should we apply for this grant?
Right.
And then that's something that would be very difficult, time consuming. A human could do most things given enough time.
Yeah.
But do we all want to spend time on something we could just ask ChatGPT or whoever to do in a couple of seconds? Probably not. So,
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, I tell people all the time, there's this idea that, and I think a lot of smaller nonprofits, founders get caught in this where they've got something they're passionate about, and it's kind of like, well, I'll just start a nonprofit. And I'm always like, don't say just. No, starting a nonprofit, it's like it's starting a business, but so much harder. And because you're fundraising and you have to figure fundraising out and sources of funding and grants are hard. I mean, there's a reason that there are grant writers out there that make a living doing that. And most of the grant writers that I know don't
mhm.
even enjoy doing that very much. So because grants are such a pain in the butt. And so anything that can be a tool to make that easier for you and allow you to be more successful. One of the even with whether it's just general marketing, video production, things like that we work with nonprofits on all the time, there is often a fear of spending money or what the quality and all that kind of, because we're a nonprofit, we shouldn't be. And yet the reality is this is what's going to make you more effective. And if you're not leaning into it, you're actually taking, if you're helping people or you're helping animals or you're helping the environment, you're taking away impact when you don't utilize all the resources that you have. And it
I
seems like
agree.
AI could really help you take it up to the next level if you could use it, figure out how to use it for your needs.
Yeah, but so Beth Cantor was another person that I interviewed for my book, and she and Allison Fine had written the book The Smart Nonprofit. And she had just recently, at the time, gotten back from Seattle when Microsoft Copilot was launching. And one of the success stories that they mentioned there is out of the UK. The UK Heart Association had rolled out Copilot and was saving per person for their staff about 45 minutes
Mm.
per day.
Hmm.
Per day. So think about that. Think about if you could take a couple hours every week and have your staff
Yeah.
maybe do a brainstorming session,
Yeah.
and free up all that creative energy to do anything else besides tedious tasks that no one wants to do, right? There's certain things that nobody wants to do,
Right.
and so why do them if you could have AI do it?
Yeah.
Now, on something like a grant writer, that is a very specialized skill, but the way I think about it is what you want to do is you want to give the grant writer more time to do the best parts of grant writing that they specialize in.
Yeah.
And you want to maybe find out, could we win twice as many grants if we stopped applying to these types of grants and only focused on these types of grants? Or you can get lists of state agencies, federal grants, all these specific types of grants that you might not know about. It can
Right.
do research for you really quickly. So you're not trying to replace a grant writer or get rid of a grant writer, but you're trying to amplify their personal, very specific skill sets that they can use rather than something basic that a lot of people or AI could do quickly. And then, just trying to amplify all the best parts of the things they like to do the best and the
Right.
things they're best at.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and even just, if you have a grant writer, being able to give them materials to make their job easier and
Right.
more efficient, because
Yeah.
oftentimes you're paying, you know, by the hour, or you're paying, that kind of situation. You can help kind of make the
Yeah.
process more streamlined. Um, yeah, this is
Absolutely.
all super interesting and fascinating, and I think, man, I'm so glad that you've got this book coming out, because nonprofits, like I said, we all in the nonprofit sector tend to be a little slow to pick up technology and a little slow to embrace change and innovate. And so anything that is going to help push people toward that. And most of these tools are free or cheap, or integrated into becoming integrated into the things you're already using. And so why not? I mean, you can always try a brainstorm or whatever try, and if you don't like the results, you don't have to use them.
Exactly, and there's one out there called, you may have tried or not yet, but it's called Poe, like Edgar Allan,
Okay.
Poe.com,
Yeah.
and it's like a dashboard of a lot of different tools, and I like it because you can request from one Gen AI tool and then hit a button to ask again, another one, ask again, ask
Oh,
again, ask again. So it's like when you talk to people, every tool answers things slightly differently, even
yeah.
if you ask the same question. So cut and paste anything you want to keep verbatim because you may never get the same answer twice.
Right.
But I like that because it's almost like polling a group of people. Well, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And for
Yeah.
certain things, it'll be similar answers, but the more creative it is, the more wide ranging the answers will be. So I like having that all in one place, just instead of going back and forth different places. So that's one of my personal favorites right now.
Wow, that's really great. Yeah, I wrote that down, poe.com. I'm gonna have to check that out. I hadn't heard of that one. That's great.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I want to ask one last question that we always end with, which is, what is the thing in your job that brings you, or in your many jobs, that brings you the most joy?
I would say 2 things. I'm a both and person, right?
Yeah.
So I would say I love, love, love public speaking, and I love, for many of the same reasons, sitting down and meeting people and finding out what makes them tick. I'm very curious about people, and so the most fun part is meeting new people and learning about them and just learning about the world. So those are my 2 top favorite pieces of my roles, my many roles.
Awesome. That's so great. Well, Amy, thank you so much for being here. Where can people connect with you and learn more about what you're working on?
Sure. So my nonprofit website is resourcefulnonprofit.org. And you can always find me at amyneumann.com, and that's AMYNEUMANN.com. And I'm a big LinkedIn user, so please connect with me on LinkedIn and anywhere else on social media. I'm a big everything on social media user, I suppose.
Awesome. Awesome. And your book is Empower Your Nonprofit: Simple Ways to Co-Create with AI for Profound Impact, and is coming out in November.
Correct. November 13th with Wiley Publishing. Yes.
Awesome. Well, we will be looking forward to that. I'm excited to check it out. Thank you so much for doing this. It's been great.
Thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Of course. Creating Good with Matt Barnes is recorded at Rogue Collective in beautiful Newport Beach, California. It's hosted and executive produced by me, Matt Barnes. Post-production is by our amazing friends over at Fame, the B2B podcast agency. Writing is by Matt Barnes and Taylor Bolanos from Rogue Creatives. Creative direction and design is overseen by Corey Hill of Rogue Creatives. Theme music is composed and performed by Jared Atherton of Chapters. Huge thanks to our amazing guests for joining us this episode, and thank you to all of you incredible listeners for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, and I would imagine you did if you're still listening, so don't forget to help us spread some good by giving us a good review. Preferably like 5 stars, lots of really nice words. It's very helpful. Also, tell your friends and subscribe so we can come straight into your potholes each and every time we have a new episode. Take the Creating Good pledge on our website at creatinggood.co. We'll catch you next time. This has been a Rogue Creatives production.